Okay, so it looks like it's recording, and all right, thank you so much everybody for joining. I am so excited to talk to you guys tonight about the 7 easiest ways to remove toxins from your life. So let's go ahead and jump right in and get started. So just to give you a brief overview about what we're going to be discussing tonight, first we're going to talk about what exactly are toxins and where are they found, the reasons why you must avoid and remove toxins, and the 7 easiest ways to do that, along with the problem with most of the products on the market today, and a bonus training on how to read ingredient labels, which I know tons of people have questions about. So I'm definitely going to give you some insight there, and then I'm going to wrap it up with some summary and give you some suggestions to walk away with. So a little bit about me. My name is Dr. Yvonne Burkart. I am a board certified toxicologist, chemical and ingredient safety expert, and a mom of 2. And my educational background goes all the way back to 2002. So that kind of gives you an idea about how old I am. But I got my Bachelor of Science in Biological Sciences and my PhD from the University of California, Irvine. And my PhD is actually in environmental toxicology, but I specialize specifically in reproductive toxicology, looking at cancer and infertility in males and females. From there, I went south and moved to UC San Diego, where I did a research fellowship with the Department of Reproductive Medicine. And after that, I decided I really wanted to go back into the field of toxicology. And I took a job as a senior toxicologist in the flavor and fragrance industry at the world's largest manufacturer of flavor and fragrance chemicals in the world. So during that time, I received my American Board of Toxicology certification, and I worked in the industry for nearly 7 years. And I decided after some time, it wasn't for me. I got totally burned out of corporate life, but I knew that I always wanted to work with people and help consumers like you navigate the complex world of environmental toxins, especially with products, and in particular moms, because I know how important it is to protect our kids from toxicity. So what exactly is a toxin? So I just want to clear up a definition real quick. So toxins are actually biological and plant-based. So anything that comes from a plant or an animal is known as a toxin, whereas a toxicant is everything else, so chemicals and metals. But oftentimes we use the word toxin and toxicant interchangeably, and most consumers use the word toxin, so I'm just going to use that just to keep it simple. But the definition is any chemical or ingredient that causes an adverse effect. So adverse effects can be wide-ranging, anywhere from skin issues to eye irritation, digestive problems, respiratory illness, and chronic disease. So chronic disease includes everything from heart disease, kidney, liver, diabetes, as well as neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. So adverse effects can be very serious and lifelong, chronic, or they can be acute, things like rashes or skin irritation, things like that. So adverse effects are very widespread, like wide-ranging, very diverse. But if you can think about it, every organ in our bodies, there is a toxicant that targets every organ in our body. So things like heavy metals affect many organs. There's other things that specifically target the liver, things like Tylenol or acetaminophen specifically targets the liver and depletes our detoxification enzymes. That's just an example. So where exactly are toxins found? They are found everywhere. So they are outside your home and inside your home. Outside of the home, these are not as easy for us to control, of course, because this is out of our hands. It has to do with widespread, ubiquitous contaminants and pollutants coming from automobile exhaust, industrial waste, which can include byproducts of chemical synthesis. So anytime a company is synthesizing an ingredient, a chemical, there is waste, and that waste has to be disposed of, and oftentimes it just ends up in the environment. Even though there are containment measures, they don't always work. So if you guys are aware of things like the Flint water crisis, and other disasters involving toxic waste. Industrial waste isn't always contained, even though they put them in steel drums and bury them deep into the ground. They will open up and break eventually over time and leach into the groundwater. So then it can also end up in the soil, which then ends up in our food, right? Whatever we eat. And so that's why we need to be really careful about what types of products and industries that we are supporting, because those products that we use on our bodies and things that we bring into our homes will eventually end up in the environment. They'll end up in water, and they'll end up in the soil, like I mentioned, in the food, and then we're going to eat them. And so then we are what we eat, right? So other toxins that are found in the environment are plant and animal toxins, such as poison oak, poison ivy, snake venoms, bug bites, things like that. But toxin exposure or toxicant exposure outside the home also includes occupational exposures. Occupational exposures are one of the most serious types of exposures you can have, because you're exposed to large volumes in high concentrations. So this is the most dangerous and hazardous type of situation to find yourself in. So if you are working in a chemical manufacturing plant or any type of industrial factory, any place like that, make sure that you connect with your EH&S, your environmental health and safety and industrial hygiene teams, to make sure that you are using proper protective equipment, because you are being exposed to high doses of chemicals over long periods of time. Because generally speaking, you don't just work there for one day, right? You work there for several years. So this is something you really need to look out for. Most of the human toxicity data that exists are usually from occupational exposures, and they are usually very serious. So including chronic diseases, like I mentioned, but also death. Okay, so where are toxins found inside your home? In your home is where you can really control your exposure. So everything that you buy, you have control over, right? So make sure that you're using the right types of products, eating the right kinds of foods that are going to minimize your exposure to environmental toxins. First example, pretty obvious one. I think we're all really aware about food toxicity, right? Things like pesticides, processing aids, preservatives, artificial colors, and as well as flavors. All of those things can be found in our food, and we can easily avoid them just by choosing minimally processed, whole, ideally organic foods. You don't have to eat everything organic, but the more you can, the better. And of course, if you guys are familiar with the Environmental Working Group, they publish a list every year of the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. The Dirty Dozen are the crops that are most heavily sprayed with pesticides, and then the Clean 15 are ones that have the lowest amounts that you can buy non-organic and still be safe. This is a very useful guide, so I highly recommend checking out their website, ewg.org. So another really big source of toxicity in the home is air quality. So house dust can actually attach itself to volatile organic compounds. So things that are off-gassing in your home can attach themselves to house dust, and then you inhale it and it enters your body. So if you are not regularly dusting and mopping your house, then you are basically walking around and kicking up dust, and then you're re-inhaling it and then getting more toxicity from it. So another huge one is mold. Mold is extremely toxic. It causes inflammation. It causes autoimmune diseases. So many types of problems come from mold. So if you use an indoor air filtration system that's able to capture house dust, volatile organic compounds, and mold, then you are in really good shape. Okay, tap water is also a really big source of toxicity, because there are heavy metals and also things like fluoride that are neurotoxic, as well as pharmaceuticals. So from when you metabolize something and it ends up in your urine and in your feces, those go into the water system, and they're not always filtered out. So make sure that you're using a high quality filtration system for your water that can remove heavy metals and fluoride. So personal care products. This is one that I have particular interest in, just because I know as a consumer, it can be so confusing to try and find safe products for yourself. There are absolutely almost no regulations in terms of what companies can put on the market. So they can literally put toxic ingredients, and they are, into everyday products, market them as safe, clean, natural, and consumers are just buying them left and right because we just simply don't know. So I'm really an advocate for consumer education and awareness, and I will be taking a deep dive toward the end of the presentation on personal care products and how we can read ingredient labels, what to look for and what to avoid. So cleaning products, again, another area that causes a lot of toxicity. So I'm sure you guys are also aware when you bring cleaning products home, there's always a warning label on the back that you need to keep it locked away from your children. Yes, that's obvious, right? Because they contain really high concentrations of toxic chemicals that can cause respiratory diseases, skin, eye irritation, and sensitization. So cleaning products are ones that I recommend when people are looking to make the switch to toxin-free and reduce their toxicity. Definitely go for safer cleaning products, safer personal care products. Definitely one of the first places where we need to start. Another source is your furniture. So furniture is often sprayed with fumigants and treated with different chemicals to prevent mold, and to just prevent like pests and stuff from, and pesticides also are sprayed onto furniture. So when you sit on the furniture, it's then coming in contact with your skin. And depending on how long you're sitting there, it can definitely cause irritation and sensitization as well. And then the off-gassing of those chemicals that have been sprayed on your furniture are then in your air. So open your windows regularly, every day, open your windows, get an air filtration system, and you'll be in much better shape. So clothing is another source of toxicity because cotton is one of the most heavily sprayed crops. It uses nearly 20% of the entire world's volume of pesticides, in case you didn't know. So oftentimes people tell you to buy cotton clothing, and that's great, of course, because it's a natural fiber, but it's heavily sprayed. So the best clothing you can get is organic cotton, organic linen, and now more available is organic bamboo. So rayon is another word for bamboo fibers. So be sure to avoid polyester clothing because every time you wash polyester, there are little bits of the plastic breaking off and going into the laundry water in the washing machine that's then going into our environment. And now they have detected microplastics, is what they're called, in fish. So we are eating those fish and we are eating plastic. Okay, really just make sure you pay attention to all this. And I know it seems like a lot at first, and it's not something that you need to run out and switch everything right away and dump everything that you have. It's very simple. Just swap things out as you run out. And next time you buy clothes, just pay attention. There's certain labels and certain designations that you can look for to make sure that you're getting truly organic cotton, because there's also counterfeit organic cotton. So anyways, just to move on, the last major source of toxicity in your home is building materials. Building materials, as you guys know, such as asbestos, can cause mesothelioma, which is a very rare type of lung cancer. But not only that, if you are using a lot of cheap furniture, such as MDF or manufactured wood. So just one big example is IKEA furniture. Most of it, unless you're getting solid wood, is manufactured wood, and it's off-gassing things that are releasing formaldehyde, and formaldehyde is a carcinogen. So just be aware of that. All right, so types of exposure. Acute is short-term exposure. So acute exposures, we're not really concerned with unless you are exposed to a really high concentration of something potent like poison, like rat poison or a pesticide, something like that. Yes, we are concerned with acute exposure. But generally speaking, acute exposure to household products is not really going to cause you lifelong problems. Unless, let's say, you swallow a bottle of Drano, well then, that's obvious, right? But chronic is what we're more concerned with. So chronic is long-term exposures. So we are most concerned with chronic low-dose exposures to the same types of ingredients over long periods of time that can accumulate in our bodies and in the environment. So examples of these are PFOAs, Teflon. Teflon is a major environmental contaminant that is extremely endocrine disrupting. It has been linked with cancer, and it never goes away. It is so stable in the environment. In order to incinerate it, you have to raise the temperature to 1,000 degrees Celsius. That is extremely high. And then once you do that, then you are releasing the products of combustion into the atmosphere, which we're then breathing in. So you must, at all costs, if there's any one thing that you must avoid, is Teflon. Teflon can be found on, of course, nonstick cookware, but also Oral-B Glide floss. So any of those plastic flosses that are, you know, smooth, gliding, those are all coated with Teflon or a form of Teflon. Let's see, like Dockers, when they advertise those like non-wrinkle pants or anything Scotch Guard, stain-free, water-resistant, avoid those at all costs. Do not buy them because they are literally polluting the planet and they are not going away. And not to mention causing cancer and polluting our bodies. So the reason we need to be concerned with environmental toxins is that diseases are on the rise. Now, these are statistics for the US for the last 10 years. There has been a 300% increase in autism, 125% increase in Alzheimer's, 123%, excuse me, and 22.5% increase in cancer cases. So the rise in cancer has actually been lower than in previous decades, but still, nonetheless, it's still going up. It's not like cancer is going away. So all of these conditions have been linked to environmental exposures. So this is the reason why we need to be concerned. So here are 7 very simple and easy ways that you can avoid toxins today. Number 1. Use toxin-free personal care and home cleaning products. I need to emphasize this in particular is because we use these things every single day. We smear lotions and creams on our body. We put deodorant on. We use toothpaste in our mouth and lip balm on our lips, shampoo on our heads. You know, you guys get it. Home cleaning products, of course, you're spraying this around, so you're getting exposed not only through your skin, but also through the route of inhalation when you spray, right? Anytime something is aerosolized, it becomes an inhalation hazard. So make sure that you're using toxin-free personal care and home cleaning products, ideally made with minimally processed and organic ingredients, same way that you would look at a food label. So when you turn over your box of whatever food you're using, you're not likely to buy something that has a lot of chemical names or highly processed foods, right? I mean, it's okay to have it once in a while and you're not going to die, but try not to make it a habit. Same thing with personal care and home cleaning products. Make it a habit to use safer products and try to rotate 2 to 3 different brands for every product you use. Now, that may sound like a lot, but here's the reason why. When you're exposed to the same ingredient, whether or not it is safe, organic, what have you, synthetic, it doesn't matter. If you're exposing yourself to the same ingredients across several different products, let's say you're using a product that has shea butter in many different products and you're exposing yourself to shea butter every day for 10 years, the likelihood that you're going to develop sensitivity or an allergy is much higher than if you were to rotate and mix it up. So number 2, take off your shoes at home. If you're not taking off your shoes before you enter your home or like as soon as you enter your home, leave them at the door. The reason is you're tracking in bacteria, viruses. Oftentimes you're walking through parking lots and there is automobile oil on the ground. You're tracking in then heavy metals, all kinds of pollutants are on the bottoms of your shoes. Remove those. Remove those, leave them at your door, and you will be significantly cutting down on your everyday toxic exposure. Not to mention your house will just be cleaner, right? So it's a win-win. It's much easier that way, right? Number 3, avoid plastic. Okay, I'm sure you already know about this one, but avoiding plastic is extremely important because plastic includes plasticizers. Plasticizers are endocrine disrupting compounds that disrupt your hormones and can cause cancer in the long run. The other issue with plastic, they don't degrade. Plastics do not degrade. So make sure that you are avoiding plastic as much as possible. Use glass, ideally, or stainless steel. I prefer glass over stainless steel simply because glass is, it doesn't absorb any odors and it doesn't release anything. It is completely inert. So use glass when possible. Stainless steel is number 2. Plastic is like never. Try to avoid plastic as much as you can. I know that it's difficult because most things are packaged in plastic, but just try to avoid it if you can. You know, they banned plastic bags, single-use plastic bags from California grocery stores, which is great. But since COVID, you're not allowed to bring your reusable plastic bags into the store. So I'm seeing more and more, you know, stores giving out plastic bags again. So still try to avoid it. Ask them not to bag your groceries, put them back in your cart, and then bag them in your own reusable bags when you get to your car. That is really going to help cut down on the plastic, and it's going to minimize the size of the plastic island that we see in the ocean. That is so devastating. Okay, number 4, use an indoor air filter and open your windows often. This one is extremely important because what you inhale goes into your bloodstream and can go to your brain. So if you are not using an indoor air filtration system and opening your windows every day, I mentioned before, there's dust that carries toxins in your house. And if you are not removing them by filtering them out or opening windows to get fresh air in, you are literally just you're getting toxicity twice, 3 times, every time you kick up dust. So you're basically like re-intoxicating yourself. Just really be careful, open your windows. It's very easy to do. Okay, number 5, eat organic. As I mentioned before, organic, USDA organic, actually means that there are no synthetics and there are no GMOs. Synthetics including any types of ingredients, but also synthetic pesticides like Roundup. Roundup is a human carcinogen. Avoid it when possible. Reference the EWG.org Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen list for ways that you can save money, what things that you need to eat organic and what things you don't. Just make sure that you try your best, especially when it comes to dairy and animal products. Try to go for organic. Organic grass-fed dairy is the best, or pasture-raised dairy is the best. Try to go for that and minimize your exposure to pesticides, things like dioxins that are very persistent. So number 6, that leads me to the next one, eat less animal fat. So toxins such as pesticides, dioxins, like I mentioned, accumulate in animal fat simply because the crops that they're fed have been sprayed. Unless they are organic, pasture-raised cows, then really avoid animal fat as much as you possibly can. Go for leaner cuts of meat. It doesn't have to be organic every time, but just try to avoid the animal fat and get your fats through other sources like avocados and olive oil, coconut oil. Those are healthier fats that you don't need to use like conventional butter. You can definitely get around it by using healthier vegetable fats, fruit and vegetable fats. Excuse me, let me just clarify, not vegetable oil, but what I mean is olive oil, coconut oil, and avocado oil. Just want to make that clear. Okay, and number 7, avoid inhalation hazards. So anything like cigarette smoke, smog, pollution, definitely do not vape. I cannot recommend that you avoid vaping at all costs because a lot of the ingredients in vape solutions have not been tested for inhalation safety, especially things like flavors. When I worked in the flavor industry, this was a massive issue where companies, we had a policy of not selling flavors to tobacco companies, but they were using third parties to purchase flavors from the manufacturers, putting them, still somehow getting our flavors into vape pens. And then there's kids turning up with all kinds of lung issues. So really be aware that whatever you inhale goes into your bloodstream very easily and also to your brain. So we need to protect our brain because exposures that happen, chronic diseases of the brain don't tend to show up till decades after the exposures. So really be careful about what you are inhaling. Things like hairspray, dry shampoo, definitely don't use anything that is a spray, hairspray, like use one that has a pump instead of an aerosol. All right, so let's get more in depth with the problems of products on the market. So when I mean products, I'm talking about skincare, body care, personal care products, okay? The main issues with most products on the market is that they contain toxic ingredients. These toxic ingredients damage the skin and negate any benefits if there are quality ingredients. So quality ingredients are things like plant extracts, oils, botanicals, shea butter, aloe vera, olive oil, sunflower oil, those types of things that are minimally processed. Those are high quality ingredients. When you combine them with toxic ingredients, they negate each other. So even if you are paying for the more expensive one, if there are toxic ingredients and toxic preservatives, those are cheaper, you're going to negate the benefits that you're getting. So you're basically canceling it out and you're wasting your time and money. Not to mention, toxic preservatives also damage the skin as well, and you'll see in the next slide why that is. But greenwashing is a big problem nowadays because companies are able to freely market their products any way they choose without any repercussions from the FDA, because terms like clean, safe, and natural, even organic, are not regulated. The only federally regulated term is USDA certified organic. So if you see the seal on a product, then you know that has definitely been evaluated by a third-party agency that is certifying for the USDA. Okay, so most products are destroying our skin's microbiome. I'm sure you guys have heard of the gut microbiome, right? Super important in our overall health. The skin microbiome is also important in our skin's health, but also it is connected to our gut microbiome through the immune system. So one of our largest organs, of course, is the skin. It makes up 10% of our body mass. And so we use the largest volume of products here, right? The skin is actually not a barrier, but it is a carrier. So what we apply to the skin is absorbed into the bloodstream. The microbiome is literally everything when it comes to skin health. Because toxic ingredients such as toxic preservatives are destroying our precious flora on our skin, they are causing long-term damage and also causing systemic damage because they are also absorbed into our bloodstream. So being really cautious and careful with what we put on our skin is very important. So here is the part that I'm sure a lot of you guys are interested in knowing about. This is reading ingredient labels. This information I got directly from the FDA website. So these are the regulations as depicted by the FDA. This is how an ingredient label reads. So the first ingredient is the most predominant, meaning it's the highest concentration, it's the most abundant. After that, so ingredients are listed in order of concentration, highest concentration first. After that, anything that is less than 1% concentration in the product doesn't have to be listed in order. Another thing is that active ingredients must be listed for products that are regulated as drugs, such as sunscreen. So you'll notice if you look on the back of your sunscreen on the label, it will always list the active ingredient. You should be using mineral sunscreen, zinc oxide, non-nanoparticle zinc oxide in particular. Avoid the synthetic sunscreens, things like avobenzone, oxybenzone, octinoxate, and octisalate. So those are very commonly used. Most things on the shelf use those synthetic sunscreens. Avoid those like the plague. Those are also endocrine disrupting. They are widespread and very accumulative in the environment, and they have been banned in Hawaii, the only state in the entire country that has actually taken action against them, has banned them from over-the-counter sunscreen sales because they damage coral reefs. And they're also found in swimming pools. They've also been detected in fish and aquatic plants. So the whole point there is that they are accumulating in the environment, so avoid those. Okay, flavors and fragrances don't need to list out all the ingredients. I'm sure you've seen that on the label where it just says fragrance, and you're like, what is that? Having worked in the flavor and fragrance industry, I can tell you that a fragrance can contain hundreds of individual chemicals within there. So they're not all necessarily toxic, but they do contain preservatives and fixatives and fragrance enhancers like phthalates. If you guys have ever heard of phthalates, those are also endocrine disrupting compounds that you need to avoid as well. Flavors, same thing. You don't need to list out all the flavors inside the actual flavor itself because the FDA is protecting the company's proprietary secret ingredients so that they're protecting those companies' profits. That means that flavor, the word flavor can have also hundreds of compounds in there of Most of them have not necessarily directly been tested for safety, both flavor and fragrance, but I can tell you that they are not necessarily toxic in and of themselves, but just the whole idea that we should be eating more organic or more wholesome, fresh fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains, things like that, then you will effectively avoid flavors. Not that flavors necessarily are that horrible for you, but most of the foods that contain flavors are also highly processed. So try to avoid highly processed foods, and you'll also avoid flavors at the same time. Another issue with ingredient labels, especially when it comes to personal care products, is that there can be processing aids and what they call incidentals in the formula, things like carriers, stabilizers, and things like that that don't need to be listed on the product label. That's also highly questionable and suspect. If you ask me, I think every ingredient should be listed. Another problem is that some of the ingredients that are used, if they're cheap, can have contamination problems. So contaminants like carcinogens and irritants and allergens and things like that that don't need to be listed on the label because it's not an it wasn't added intentionally. So that is another thing that complicates this whole reading of ingredient labels. But I put here an example in this slide, some of the types of ingredients that you will see in very readily available products on the shelf, mostly all chemical names, as you can see. So the best thing that you can do when you're looking for products is to look for minimally processed, wholesome ingredients that are plant-based, ideally organic. So if you can recognize a plant name, you see a plant name on there, that's a good sign. The words oil, pulp, or juice, or powder, those are all good signs. If you look in the first couple ingredients and you're already seeing a bunch of chemical names, that's something that I would walk away from. So just to really safeguard yourself, try to do the best that you can and don't stress out about it because it's really not going to kill you after one use, but just starting to wrap your mind around how ingredient labels work, how all of these things work, you'll start to get the hang of it. And then you'll be able to make simple swaps that will have really, really big lifelong benefits. Okay, so what to avoid? First ingredient, water. The reason you want to avoid this is because if the first ingredient is water, you can be guaranteed 100% that there are toxic preservatives in that product. The reason is bacteria need water to survive. So if the first ingredient is water, you know there will be toxic preservatives, which you also want to avoid because they're destroying our skin's microbiome, but also because you're mostly paying for water. So if you think about it, companies are selling you a product that contains mostly water and you're paying for mostly water, which is actually ridiculous. Not only that, you're paying for toxic preservatives and petroleum-based ingredients that are actually harming your health. So try to avoid products that have the first ingredient of water, toxic preservatives like phenoxyethanol, that's one that is used very widely, parabens, and also petroleum-based ingredients. So I know that I've spewed a lot of information at you, and I know that it seems like it can be overwhelming, right? But I have resources for you. So if you are interested in getting a guide of ingredients to avoid, feel free to contact Dr. Beatty, or you can also visit my website, and I have resources there. I'm going to throw up the link to my website in the next slide, but I just want to wrap up and give you a couple takeaways. Environmental toxins cause chronic diseases that don't show up until decades after exposure has begun. So the best thing that you can do is avoid and remove toxins now. Taking small, simple steps. Don't feel overwhelmed because you're not going to die today. It's really about the long game and looking to safeguard yourself and your family for the long run, right? Childhood exposures are going to have lifelong consequences. So really taking care and making sure that your products, everything that you and your family are being exposed to in your home in particular, are safe, okay? So avoid and remove toxins now. If this sounds like a lot and you are really excited, passionate, and you are looking for help, you're tired of going down rabbit holes and reading ingredient labels, doing research on every single ingredient, not even sure if what you're looking up is correct, I made the Toxin-Free Academy just for this reason, because every single day I'm receiving messages from moms and families, people who are totally confused and just fed up with all of the deceptive marketing, all of the misinformation that's out there. And they are sick and tired of not knowing what's safe and what's toxic, what they're wasting their money and their time on, right? So I created this 90-day personalized coaching program that is designed to help you protect your family and reclaim your time freedom. So you don't have to do research, spending hours, getting confused and overwhelmed. I have a foolproof method that will help you decide within 5 seconds if a product is something that you want to spend your money on and you want to trust your health with. So if you want to apply, go ahead and visit my website, www.thetoxicologymomma.com. You can apply for the Toxin-Free Academy. You can also see my list of recommended products, and you can shoot me an email and I will send you a free resource of ingredients to avoid. And also make sure you follow me at the Toxicology Momma on Facebook and Instagram, where I do 2 weekly live streams on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. I take deep dives into safety, toxicology, but also helping you to navigate and understand the complex world of ingredients and safe products for your family. So I want to thank you guys so much for your attention. Thank you to Dr. Beatty for organizing this. I've had an amazing time sharing this information with you, and I hope you gained something that you can take away and start protecting your family right now. So I'm going to open it up. Does anyone have questions?
Awesome job, Yvonne.
Thank you.
Yeah, you crushed it. And you put it in phrases that people could understand. My buddy Jack's actually on the line, so I don't know if he wants to talk or not. But
hi, Jack. Thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, no, that was really great information. Really awesome information.
And he's a buddy. He's a chiropractor in Nebraska.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for hopping on. What time is it over there? Is it 2 hours ahead of California?
Yeah, 2 hours ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I love getting my chiropractic adjustments and definitely connecting with more, natural healthcare providers who understand the issue with toxicity. So that's really important.